right. Good evening. Welcome back. Tonight's guest is a one who's familiar that longtime viewers should be familiar with. Um, Mike Spring is currently running. Just kicked off today, Tuesday. He's running a new Kickstarter for a new series that he's writing. Previously, he's done Red, White, and Broke, and he's also one of my fellow contributors on the Comic Watch site. So we are definitely giving him some love for his new project. So I'm going to stop rambling and bring him on in, and we can find out about what he's been up to and his new book.
Hello,
How's it
Chad.
going?
Good. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm getting over my trip to West Virginia where I somehow got COVID again, but
Uh,
it's very mild.
oh, that's good. That's good. But yeah, it's never fun though. I get it. Well,
But
thanks for
so
having me back on. I'm excited to be back on. It's always good to talk to you.
well, as I was saying, we're kind of doing this in conjunction with Comic Watch, which who we both contribute to, and as you probably know, every week I put together what we call the crowdfunding corner,
Mhm.
and this week you will be at the top of the list,
Woohoo.
and we'll also release this interview as a separate you know addition to this. But so what have you been up to since we last talked? We talked and roomed together at New York Comic Con and a few months ago. I don't know, but
Yeah.
what have you been up to? I mean, I know you did some finished up your Red, White, and Broke
Yep.
series, and so
Yeah. That was the big thing before launching into the current one, right? So Red, White, and Broke, we had right around the same time as New York Comic Con. I had that Kickstarter for the Red, White, and Broke trade paperback, and that collected the 4 issue series into the book, and then getting all that stuff out and mailed and everything like that was took some time. And then it's really just been prepping for this, trying to get as much of the book done as I can before taking it live, doing all the creation of the Kickstarter, and the it's like coordinating all the cover artists and everything, and just writing everything out in terms of like the tiers and the pledges and all that stuff. So it's been a lot of prep work, but now it's live and I'm very excited, and we've had a nice start so far, so it's pretty cool.
well, I may have been the first or the second backer.
I think you
So
were actually backer number one, if I'm not mistaken.
yes,
There was like three of you that all came in like right at the same time, but on my phone, your pledge came through first, and that's what I count as number one. You know what I mean? That's usually pretty. So thank you, as always,
oh,
for your support.
well, yeah, definitely. So tell us about your new project. What is it?
Yeah, happy to. So it's called Uncaped. It is a superhero rom-com graphic novel. So it's a 48-page graphic novel. And it's a complete story. I decided to move away from single issues, like consecutive, issues. This is a one shot. It's a one and done story. Although there can be more, but it's not going to leave you hanging or waiting for another issue. It tells the whole story from start to finish. But it's a superhero romantic comedy. It's effectively answering the question of what if Wonder Woman fell in love with Jimmy Olsen, right? We have this superhero, Lady Olympus. She has all the powers of the gods, the Greek gods, but she can only use one at a time. But she's very powerful, very beautiful, very famous. And she, on one of her superhero missions, she has her entire future revealed to her. And what she sees is a life she spends with this guy, Lucas Wilder, who happens to be a completely average Joe. He works in the comic book store, he plays in a garage band, and he's just a regular guy. So basically, she shows up on his doorstep and says, "Hey, want to get married?" And as exciting as that sounds, to have a goddess appear on your doorstep, Lucas, maybe slightly insecure, isn't sure he's ready to date the world's most famous, popular, and powerful superhero. So it really does kind of follow the beats of a classic romantic comedy. I really kind of tried to model after all your favorite, a lot of Notting Hill and things like, Love Actually and She's All That and all those great, romantic comedies of the past. I really tried to, When Harry Met Sally, all that stuff, all that, those kind of traditional beats, but in a superhero world, and with some good superhero action in it.
Well, when you say that, I know that the story would probably most if you're saying that and you're a big movie guy and all that, so I know that if that's the way you're billing it, then that's definitely what people should expect from it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's I worked hard to really find a balance between the humor, right? Because that's a
Hmm.
big part of it for me. That's my writing style, and the romance. I wanted people to kind of get the warm and fuzzies from reading this, but then having to add in the superhero action part, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm sure there are people out there who would love to just read a comic book about. I mean, look, there's things like Strangers in Paradise, which was successful for years and years, and is one of my favorite comics of all time, and it was definitely an influence. And there's not a ton of action per se in it, although there is some, but there's no superheroes. But I love my superheroes, and I wanted to add some of that as well. So really, it was striking that balance between those three elements that I think was tricky. But I do think that if you like a good romantic comedy, you'll enjoy this, and if you like a good superhero action story, you'll also enjoy it. And if you happen to like both, listen, then I got good news for you.
So did you approach this book maybe a little different from Red, White, and Broke?
I did a little bit. My writing style is very like my process, I should say, not my style. My writing process is very much I percolate on my ideas and I get it all kind of mapped out in my head, and I think about it, and I think about it, and I think about it, and then I sit down and I go and I type it all out, in big bursts. But with Red, White, and Broke, because I knew I wanted to do a 4-issue series, there was a lot more having to plan beats, right? I had to make sure, like, I knew I wanted to end each issue on a cliffhanger. So I kind of knew where I wanted to start the issue, where I wanted to end the issue, and then I had to fill everything in from there to make sure I could get to that point and then solve it in the next issue, and then I was like, well, it was a 24-page comic, so I knew it had to be. I had to come up 24 pages, right? This one
Hmm.
is a 48-page graphic novel, but I also knew that if I came in at, say, 46 pages or 42 pages and I had told the story I wanted to tell, I could add some bonus materials or things like that, right? Because I didn't have to worry about getting to the end to leave it for the next issue.
Hmm.
So that really kind of freed me up a little bit to just sort of tell the story I wanted to tell and not have to get so caught up in the mechanics of it, and in the end, it came to almost 48 pages. I think there's a couple pages of bonus materials in the end. I have some fun stuff cooked up for that. But yeah, so it was a little bit different of a process just in terms of I felt like I could kind of just sort of write out the story I wanted. And if a scene took 1 page, great. If it took 3 pages, like, also great. I didn't have to worry about it so much.
That's 2 less pages you have to worry about writing.
Yeah, exactly.
So you kind of talked about how your process differed, but do you, having written both a multi-issue series and this graphic novel style, do you prefer one over the other now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I do like the sort of graphic novel style, and I think that's really what I'm going to move towards for my future projects. I launched Outtatime Comics as my publishing company, and I did Red, White, and Broke through that. But from a marketing and a Kickstarter and a convention standpoint, it's hard to have like 2 issues of a 4-issue series out. It's hard to sell that because people want the whole story,
Hmm.
and at conventions, once, like, I found that once I had my Red, White, and Broke trade paperback, my sales like doubled at conventions because people like to be able to take like just a book home, one thing, even though I would have like the 4-issue set, I still sold like twice as many of the trade paperback, which is the exact same thing, right? But in one book. And so I think, like, not only did I enjoy the writing part of it, but I think from a logistical and a marketing standpoint, being able to tell people like at cons or on Kickstarter, like, hey, here's this book, right? It's a complete story start to finish. You take this home. There's nothing else to buy. You don't have to wait for another issue. You don't have to support another Kickstarter. You can just read this and enjoy it and then be done with it,
Hmm.
and so I like it from that standpoint, and I liked it from the writing standpoint, I think, a little better. So my current plan, unless something, things can always change. My current
Hmm.
plan is to really do kind of, these sort of 48-page square bound. They're nice, thick square bound with the spine and everything, one shots. And there might be another Uncaped one shot, right? There would be another 48-page story, but it would be, again, a self-contained story in that, yeah, you'll want to have read the first one sort of to understand the characters and stuff, but there'll be enough of a recap that even if you only pick up that second one, it'll still be its own story that you can follow and understand from start to finish. And again, it won't be like, dependent on having read the other one, or leaving you hanging for a third part or anything like that. And I think that's really the way, kind of like how novelists write, a lot of their novels are the same characters, but each one is its own standalone book, right? You can pick up any Jack Reacher novel and figure out what's going on very quickly, right? That's kind of what I'm hoping to do.
So I take it it's a different kind of universe than the Red, White, and Broke,
Well,
um, or are you making the out of time comics first?
Yes and no. It's I don't have any plans for like grand plans for like a shared universe or anything like that. Like I'm gonna do some mega crossover. That's not in the works in the plans. However, I'll say this. When I was doing the fourth issue of Red, White, and Broke, I already had the idea for Uncaped in my head, and I'd already created Lady Olympus. So there's a scene in the last issue of Red, White, and Broke where he's talking about recruiting other celebrities to or other superheroes to contribute to this charity initiative that he's doing. So I made one of them Lady Olympus. So her actual first appearance, her first cameo appearance, is one panel in Red, White, and Broke #4, which I added. I had some copies left, so I put them on as add-ons on the Kickstarter for the collectors out there who want to be complete, have her first appearance if in case she's ever famous. And then so I just then in Uncaped, like there's a scene where it gets revealed that that she's dating this guy, and so the paparazzi show up and they're all peppering her with questions, and one of them says like, are things over with Captain Stronghold? Who of course is the lead character of Red, White, and Broke, right? So it's not so much as a shared universe in my mind as more of like Easter eggs. Like if you've read this one, you'll get the joke here. If you've read that one, you'll get the joke here. But I don't currently have any plans to make it like any more connected than that. It's more just like a little fun, like, oh, that's funny. He put in, Captain Stronghold's name here or whatever, but he doesn't show up in the book or anything like that. So that's kind of how that works.
Now, and I hope this, the question comes out, doesn't sound like I'm a whatever, but is it easier writing a male protagonist or a female protagonist?
I that's a good question, actually. I think, I mean, look, I'm a man, right? So there has to be some level at which writing a male character is probably a little bit easier, right? And I think when I was writing this one, I'll give you an answer you probably weren't expecting, but sort of sneaky down low, this is a little bit of the story of my wife and I. There's when I met my wife, I worked in a comic book store and I was playing in a band, and to me she was like this goddess, right? And so there's a lot of parallels to sort of our relationship and how we met. And so obviously in this book, the character of Lucas, the everyday guy, was easy for me to write because most of what he thinks and says is what things I thought and said, right, in our relationship. That said, what I'll say is I had a really clear picture of who I wanted Lady Olympus to be and what I wanted her character to be like and what her personality was like. So I found her very easy to write. Whether or not I captured an authentic female voice as a man writing, that's a different story, and I'll have to leave that to the readers to decide. But I hope and I think I succeeded. I feel fairly confident that I succeeded, but only time will tell. But I did enjoy writing her a bit, and I really did put a lot of work into trying to make her sound, like her own character and not just me coming through somebody else's mouth.
So, who's the rest of the creative team that you're working with? Are they the same people or same ones from your other series?
They are, actually. I have to say I've really lucked into working with some great people, and I didn't really see a reason to mess with that. So my artist is Dennis Torona. He drew all 4 issues of Red, White, and Broke. He's a fantastic artist. I would say the closest comparison for people who are really into comics is, to me, he looks a lot like early Jim Chung, who's really a superstar artist. Now in recent years, Jim Chung, who I love, has gotten a little more stylized, but his earlier stuff, I see a lot of similarities between Dennis and early Jim Chung work, and I think he's just fantastic. And his mastery of faces and expressions is so great. And because I write a lot of humor in my books, that's really necessary to get that across. You can't just, they're not all just superhero faces. You know what I mean? There's a lot of emotions and humor and smirks and things like that he nails perfectly. So he's perfect for the way I write, and he's a great guy, and he's very timely. My colorist is Tiago Brandao he lives in Brazil, but he does great colors, really captures the look that I want. And then Dave Lentz is my letter and production art guy, and he's just fantastic. If you've seen the different covers, on, if you're watching this, you probably haven't seen them yet, but if you go to the Kickstarter and you see all the different covers, we have like a Rolling Stone cover homage and a Mary Jane homage cover and an Art Nouveau cover. And he did all the graphics work for those, like the logos and the lettering and all that stuff. And he really does make a huge difference in the book. I can't overestimate how important he's been to making the books look the way I want them to also. So all three of those guys worked on Red, White, and Broke, and have had great experiences with all of them. So I keep coming back to them.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the different covers that you had, and I was looking at them, and they're pretty cool. And I mean, I like the Rolling Stone cover. That kind of reminds me of the Gen 13 homage cover that they did.
Right. Yep. Well, they're both homaging the Janet Jackson
yeah,
cover.
right. Yeah.
That was definitely an influence there for sure.
So is there a Frank Cho pinup?
I mean, listen, don't think I haven't thought about trying to get Frank Cho, but I think that would probably be next to impossible. But there are some big name artists that I've talked to who have said they would do it when time allows, and so that's not a a hard guarantee or anything like that. But I've had some good sized named artists on some of my previous books, like Russ Brown and Drew Moss, like that. And I've got some people in the works for future books as well. This time around, it's not the biggest names, but I think if you see the covers, they're all pretty stunning. And there's an Art Nouveau cover that people have really been raving about. That looks like Alphonse Mucha, who's my favorite all-time fine artist. He created the Art Nouveau style, and it's patterned after that. So I think people will really like them a lot, regardless of if they know the name who drew it or not.
So I had a question. Is there in the new book? I know you talked about, right? Voicing. Is there a character you kind of did you latch on to the male character that modeled after you, or did you kind of?
It really kind of went back and forth depending on who I was writing at the time. I will say this: the character I really had a lot of fun writing is Abby, which is Lucas's roommate. She is homosexual, and she's his like best friend, confidant, roommate, and she's also obsessed with cats. And she wears cat ears all the time, and she sort of is like Lucas's like smack him in the face and bring him back to reality when he does dumb things. And I really had a lot of fun writing her. And honestly, I wish I had found more scenes to fit her into the book than I did. If I come back to this story, which so far the way it's going in the Kickstarter seems like it's going to be very successful, I probably will do another one. I think I'm going to work to make her a bigger part of the book. She was a lot of fun. I liked having her voice. She kind of is the voice of reason, but also the voice of sarcasm. And then is constantly turning things back to like cats, and also might be slightly in love with Lady Olympus. Not in a way as where like in a relationship, but just sort of like constantly asking Lucas, like, what does she smell like? Is she amazing? Could she turn me into a cat? Those types of things. So I had a lot of fun with her.
So what campaign or reward levels are you offering? For people to who should be backing your book.
Yeah, I really wanted. It's funny. I wanted to keep it simple. I still ended up with like 20 reward tiers, but that's just the nature of Kickstarter. In some of my previous campaigns, especially my earlier ones, you try all kinds of different things. I did some art prints and stuff like that. And this time, I really wanted to keep it fairly simple. So basically, the way it works is there's what I call 5.5 main covers, right? Or variant covers. So there's 5 covers, right? That are all beautiful, amazing artwork. You can pick any one you want. Then there's a 6th cover, which is a blank sketch cover, because those are very popular. You get it at conventions. You get people draw sketches of Lady Olympus or whatever you want on it. And so I wanted to offer that. Then there are 5. There isn't one for the sketch cover because it'll just be blank, but there are 5 virgin variants, which is basically the exact same 5 covers, just with no logos, no credits, no numbering or anything like that to get in the way of the artwork. That's a very popular trend in comics these days. And so I wanted to offer those. Those are strictly limited to 100 copies each.
Mhm.
And they will never be reprinted. So they're a little bit more of the kind of collectory item. I've had a lot of people so far pledging on, because you can add on, then you mix and match however you want. So I had a lot of people picking a cover they liked and buying the regular version with all the logos and stuff, and the Virgin cover as a pair, right? So you get both, one with just the artwork and one with everything. I've had a lot of people, doing that. And then you can get a whole set, two set. There's three different sets. You can get just the 6 main covers for savings like $20. You can get like the 5 Virgin covers for a saving of like $20, or there's a mega pack where you can get all 11 covers. That includes the 5 regular, the 5 Virgin, and the sketch cover, and that's like $40 savings. So, and that's really it. I didn't do anything extra in terms of like postcards or prints or anything like that, just because I wanted to keep it to just the comics this time.
Mhm.
So. Yeah, so that's what's
And
available. And you can mix and match it because there's add-ons. So you can get one
mhm.
cover, you can get 5 covers, you can get 20 covers, you can get 2 covers, you can, however you want to do it.
And I mean, the campaign's just a little over 24 hours old. How are you? How's it going? And
I'm happy to say it's my best first 24 hours yet. We've already raised over $3,000 on our way to a goal of 7,500. So we're almost 50% funded in the first 24 hours, which is pretty nice. I had to set a slightly higher goal for this one than on my past few, just because prices on everything have gone up so much. Paper has gotten really expensive. Shipping has gotten really expensive. And each of the last few campaigns, I basically finished shipping out the last package and had like 0 left in my bank account. And it's like, then if I need to do reprints or anything like that, there's nothing left because everything's gone up so much. So I really had to, I had to ask for a slightly higher goal. I'm not trying to like, pay for my car or something with it, but I want to make sure I had enough to pay for everything, especially all the different covers
yeah,
and things that could add up to more shipping. And so we're about, like I said, almost halfway there, which is very exciting. It is a really good start, for only being a day in. Now, typically, campaigns do slow down after the second or third day. So that's where you enter then 2 or 3 weeks of, I got a pledge today. I got a couple pledges today. I didn't get any pledges today. And then at the end, it kicks in a little bit. But I'm really hoping that this one is going to be our biggest one yet. And I'm really trying to get it out there because I really do think people are going to enjoy it. I think it's a really fun book. And, I think it appeals to a lot of what Kickstarter readers are looking for. So my hope is I can start to get into the upper echelons where I see some of the other creators getting into the 5-digit territory, which I have yet to crack, but I'm hoping this will be the one.
so I assume that you have some stretch goals in mind. Should you, reach that point in the campaign?
Yeah, always. And I always go very lofty with my stretch goals. Like I try to do like metal coins and enamel pins, and I never seem to be able to get to that point. So I wanted to keep them a little bit simpler this time. So the first stretch goal is a nice art print of Lady Olympus. It's a beautiful page by Dennis. It's going to have none of the lettering or anything, but it's a really great shot of her in her kind of summer costume. It's like beautiful and a little bit sexy, but nothing cheesecakey. And then the next stretch goal after that will be a bookmark. Again, a really nice Lady Olympus bookmark. And then after that, I said kind of to be continued, because to get to that point would be
Yeah.
well over what I'm asking for. And I don't know if that's going to happen. It hasn't been my experience just yet. And then if we start to really take off and go crazy, then maybe I will bring in some of those bigger, I'd love to do like a sketchbook, a separate sketchbook. I've seen some campaigns do that, but those are the ones that usually get up into like $30,000-$40,000 to make it worthwhile. And I have not gotten there yet. So yeah, definitely some stretch goals planned. And I try to do fun things with them when I can.
Kind of shifting gears. What I know you do, after the credits, after the end,
Yep.
after the end, yeah. I mean, what are you watching now? What are you digging? I mean,
Sure.
I I know that. Well, I mean, I've been wanting to ask you what your thoughts on the Willow series were.
That's a great question. I loved it. I love the Willow series. I'm a huge fan of Willow the movie. I have been since I was young, and I was really excited for the series. And I have to say, it did not disappoint me. I thought, I mean, the first episode was the best, and it honestly like brought tears to my eyes. But I thought all of them were really good, and I'm excited for them to do more of it. So that's definitely high on my list. Um,
I thought it got a little weird there in like episode 6 where they're like in the forest partying and
yeah, I mean, it definitely was. It's definitely a slightly different vibe. They definitely kind of mixed some more modern type of things in with it a little bit, but I think you kind of have to keep things fresh. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
it's not a perfect show, but I did enjoy it very much.
Same here.
Yeah. Let's see. As soon as we're finished here, actually, I'm going to go watch the new episode of The Mandalorian because that dropped.
It is awesome.
Yeah,
It's I was disappointed that they only have one up.
I know. Well, yeah, I know, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna watch that when we're done. What else? Really been enjoying. Let me think. I'm trying to think if I've watched any good movies lately too, because I do. Let me check the movie tracking app and see if anything has stood out for me lately. I've been watching. Okay, so oddly enough, I've been rewatching. Not oddly, but I've been rewatching. For me, rewatching with my daughter the first time watching the Halloween movies. So we're up to Halloween 5 right now, and they're my favorite horror movies. That's my favorite horror franchise by far. So I'm really enjoying that. And then we also rewatched, or I rewatched, but her first time was World War Z, which is really one of my favorite zombie movies ever. And I gotta recommend, I think it's on Netflix. There's a documentary called The Pez Outlaw. It's about a guy who with the Pez candy who sort of created like this dynasty of selling collectible Pez's by going like overseas and kind of black market buying them and then bringing them back to the US and everything. It's really fun. And it's a quick watch. So that was really good. Let's see, new season of Picard I'm enjoying very much. Star Trek Picard has been great. Really liking that. And yeah, that's kind of what I've been watching lately.
I just because I've kind of hit a wall with my watching. I broke down and started watching Black Adam today.
I like Black Adam. I mean, it's not brilliant or anything, but I thought it was an enjoyable romp. It's a good way to kill a couple hours. I liked it.
So anything else new? How's the podcast going? Because I know that I try to catch you whenever you're on whenever you're on Facebook and stuff like that.
Yep, it's going well. It's we have a as I'm sure most podcasters can relate to. We have a small but loyal audience, right? Not small like 5 people. I mean, we've got good couple hundred, just thousand, listeners. And they enjoy the show, and we have a good time with it. We get people commenting on the live feed sometimes and stuff like that. So it's the nice thing
sometimes is some jerk makes a snide comment and
no, enjoy your comments, but neither myself or my co-host Phil, I think, ever got into it to be like, oh, we're going to make a ton of money at this. We're going to be the next huge podcast stars. And obviously, we hoped it would sort of take off and become its own thing. But I think we also realistically knew that that's it's hard to do that, and so we really just do it for our own enjoyment. We like to talk to each other about movies. We like coming up with the endings. We like having the conversations and we do like interacting with people. So if we can get some people to listen to it, great. But I'm not spending a ton of money to make it or anything like that. So we just do it. We have fun with it. If people pick up on it and they enjoy it, awesome. And if it's just those same, few hundred to few thousand people every, month listening to it, then I'm okay with that too,
Well, getting back to the Kickstarter, we'll wrap up here soon because I know you want to go and watch The Mandalorian, and you should that should be more important than this. But
definitely not.
And if you don't want to comment on it, don't worry about it. But I know that you had a comment on Facebook today that kind of was.
Yeah, I mean, it's just running a Kickstarter is it's a lot of marketing and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of stress and you put it out there for the world. You try to get people to pledge on it, and people either will like, I don't care if you don't want to pledge my Kickstarter,
Okay.
whether I know you or I don't know you. Like, fine, whatever, no big deal. I'm not gonna like unfriend you or anything like that. But people either try to come up with excuses as to why they can't pledge, or they will like. This particular comment today was from a stranger, because I was posting in some different groups, and they, they just said some things about, you know, that I didn't have enough of the story up there, and that it's just a gimmick because all the covers and this and that, it's just that kind of stuff. And it was like, all
Yeah.
right. And it had made some, I would classify them as slightly rude comments about, why I didn't have the story pages up. And I was like, ultimately you have to laugh, you know what I mean? It's like, I know I don't have them up, because he's like, your pages are unfinished. And I was like, yeah, that's the reason I'm doing a Kickstarter. Like, the script is written and the artwork is all drawn, but the reason that they're in black and white and they don't have any lettering on them is because I have to pay the color and the letterer, and I don't have the money for that, which is why I'm running a Kickstarter. That's what the funding is for. Once I have the
A
Kickstarter,
plus B equals.
right? You know what I mean? And I try not to be, snide about it, but I am like, well, that's why they're unfinished, because I can't finish them without the Kickstarter funds. Like, it's very expensive to make a comic book, and I don't think people to make a professional comic book. And I think you've seen them, and other people who've seen them know that my books look like the real deal, right? I mean, the artwork is
Mhm.
great, like the printing quality, the paper is thick, the cover stock is thick. Like, when you pick up an out of time comic, it feels like something you would buy in the comic stores or at Barnes and Noble, coming out from Marvel or DC. And that's not cheap. And so it's like, I just don't have several $1,000s laying around every time I want to publish a comic book. And that's why Kickstarter is so great. And that's why I love Kickstarter. But it did seem like he maybe missed the point just a little bit. So look, you can't please everybody. And some people are
I
never
know.
going to, but it was, it was amusing. What are you going to
So are you planning? Well, I'm sure you're planning on doing some local shows to kind of. What are you waiting till after the book is, completed, or are you going to be out there slinging what you have and
It's
drumming up support?
yeah, I mean, it's always, timing is always tricky. Yeah, ideally it'd be nice to have it in time for all the conventions that are coming up. Unfortunately, scheduling just doesn't always work like that. Luckily, I have Red, White, and Broke already out there, so I can go to a
Hmm.
convention, and bring that and do my sales for that. My hope was to kind of have this book out as soon as possible, so I could take it with me, to as many conventions this year as I could. Realistically speaking, I'm probably going to not have it in time for the first few shows this summer. The big Saratoga convention I do in May, it probably won't be ready for that, but like, I do Granite Con in September out in New Hampshire. It should be here for that. I think I'll have the books probably in July or August. So, the last few shows of the year, I'll definitely have it for. The first few, it'll probably be more like, hey, I've still got Red, White, and Broke, and there's plenty of people who haven't read that yet. And then,
Hmm.
like, maybe I'll make some ash cans or something, some little,
Hmm.
preview books to kind of drum up some excitement for it.
Whet the appetite.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But I can only rush the production of the book so much. It's like, they got to run the Kickstarter campaign for 30 days.
Yeah.
Like, can't really speed that up any. And then I got to get it to the letterer and the colorist and the printer, and they got to ship it, and then I got it's a time consuming process. But I'm hoping to have it out as soon as possible.
Well, how about you make a final pitch for the book and
Absolutely.
where people can find you on the social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So again, once again, Uncaped. It's a 48-page square-bound graphic novel. It's a one-shot story, complete from start to finish. You don't need to read anything else. You don't have to wait for a follow-up. You get one complete great story. It's a fun superhero romantic comedy. It's sexy. It's silly. It's action-packed, and the artwork is beautiful, and the covers are all really gorgeous. And I can say that because I didn't do any of them. I'm just the writer. I'm the word. It's on Kickstarter live right now. You can, I'm sure there'll be links attached to this video, but you can also just go to Kickstarter and search for Uncaped, or search for me, Mike Spring, and you'll find it. And then you can find me on all the social channels as at Outtatime Comics. And that's the Back to the Future spelling, if you will, which is OUTTA Time Comics, all one word, out of time, not out of time, Outtatime Comics. So, we're on all the, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok,
Mhm.
all that stuff, you name it. So come, and
And
also, of
don't
course, outattimecomics.com, our website.
well, this will be up on Comic Watch as its own article and prominently featured in the crowdfunding corner.
Much
And
appreciated as always.
we'll keep the project in the in the the weekly post, as long as you're running the campaign.
Great. I
So,
appreciate that. Yeah, it runs till March 30th. So anytime between now and then, feel free to pledge on it. Of course, the sooner you pledge, no money is due till the 30th, but the earlier you pledge, the more it pushes us up the Kickstarter
mm,
algorithm, and the more exposure we get, the more people see it, the more pledges we get, which it leads to us getting funded. So, but I do appreciate any pledge that comes in from anybody. I appreciate anybody who takes time to even look at the page. I'm very thankful for anybody who takes a chance with their hard-earned money on our little company. So,
well, I'm definitely going to have to see if I can swing for some of the add-ons. I wanted, like I said, I wanted to get my initial pledge in, right away. And
yeah, no, it's always exciting to get that first pledge. So I appreciate that.
all right, well, I want to thank you for taking the time this evening, and we'll have to get together, maybe, hopefully before I will see you before. Hopefully, see you before New
I'm
York
sure
Comic
I'll see
Con.
you before New York Comic. Definitely, definitely.
But
And I look
I
forward.
just want to say that was a fun time last year hanging
Oh
out
yeah,
with you, and
it was a blast.
just and getting you that sketch.
I have a feeling, Chad, I'm going to be hearing about that pretty much for the rest of my life. You know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Alrighty, well, again, thanks again. Good luck, and
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
and, well, as soon as this goes live and stuff, you'll be the first to know.
Sounds great. I'll spread the word.
And you can find me on Comic Watch, uh, and check out the crowdfunding corner. We try to spotlight a lot of different campaigns, mainly those that kind of need a little extra push. Um, we do Zoop, we do Kickstarter, and other crowdfunding sites. So, but
Great.
yeah, have a good evening, and look forward to having you on again sometime to talk about how successful this campaign was, and probably a lot more stuff.
Sounds great. I'll be here.
All right, have a good evening.
You too. Thanks, Chad.